Listen, I need to tell you something. And I mean really tell you, because what I witnessed 3 cycles ago changed everything I thought I knew about those strange, soft-skinned bipeds from that backwater planet they call Earth. My name is Vorath, and I am a training coordinator at the Galactic Defense Institute on Station Chronos. I've been doing this job for 27 years, seen thousands of cadets from hundreds of species. Thought I had seen it all. I was wrong. So wrong. It started on intake day. You know the drill. New cadets shuffle in, all nervous energy and inflated egos, thinking they are going to breeze through combat certification because they dominated some local tournament back home or whatever. Most wash out in the first month. The ones who survive, they become something special. But that day, that particular day, I noticed her immediately. But not because she was impressive. Oh no, quite the opposite. Her name was Kira Vance. Human, female, exactly 1.6 meters tall, maybe 55 kilograms soaking wet. She walked into the intake hall looking like a stiff breeze could snap her in half. I remember thinking, what kind of cruel joke is this? The Terran government actually sent this tiny thing to one of the most brutal combat academies in the known galaxy? Commander Thrace, my superior, a massive Krogan with 4 arms and enough battle scars to tell 1,000 stories, took one look at her and laughed. Actually laughed. His voice boomed across the hall. Is that a child? Did someone bring their offspring to work today? The other cadets, about 40 of them, all turned to look. There were Krogans, naturally. 3 Vraxian warriors with their chitinous armor plating, a pair of Helian twins, each standing 2.4 meters tall with muscles that had muscles. 1 Kixar, all tentacles and venom sacs, even a Fenrock covered in fur and teeth. And then there was Kira Vance, standing there in standard-issue training gear that looked 3 sizes too big for her frame, holding a datapad, her face completely neutral. Sir, she said, her voice quiet but steady. Cadets reporting for combat certification, sir. Thrace stopped laughing, but the grin remained. Sweetheart, did you take a wrong turn? The administrative offices are on level 7. Several cadets snickered. The Vraxians clicked their mandibles in what I had learned was their version of laughter. One of the Helian twins, a male named Dax, whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear, "They let anything in these days, huh?" Kira did not react. She just stood there, waiting. I felt something then, a little twinge of, what, sympathy? Annoyance? These bullies picking on someone who clearly did not belong here. But orders were orders. Humans had recently joined the Galactic Council, and their admission came with certain requirements. Every member species had to send cadets for military certification. Usually they sent their best, their strongest, their most capable warriors. Earth had sent, among others, this slip of a girl who looked like she would struggle to open a heavy door. Fine, Commander Thrace said, waving one massive hand dismissively. To get processed, your physical evaluation is in 2 hours. Try not to break anything before then. He paused, then added with a smirk, especially yourself. More laughter. Kira simply nodded, turned, and walked toward the processing station. I watched her go, already writing my report in my head about how the Terran Selection Committee had made a catastrophic error in judgment. The physical evaluation was, in a word, embarrassing. Every cadet had to complete a standard battery of tests: strength, speed, endurance, reflexes. We used universal metrics, adjusted for species physiology, of course. A Krogan was not expected to match a Vraxian in speed, just as a Kixar was not expected to match a Helian in raw power. Each species had their own benchmark scores they needed to hit to qualify for combat training. Kira Vance hit exactly none of them. Her strength test? She could barely lift the minimum weight. Her speed trial? Middle of the pack, nothing special. Endurance run? She finished, but she was breathing hard by the end, her face flushed red. The Helian twins had not even broken a sweat. Pathetic, I heard Dax mutter as she stumbled off the running track. Why is she even here? His sister Nyla nodded. Humans are classified as Deathworlders, right? I thought Deathworlders were supposed to be, tough. That was the thing, you see. Earth was classified as a Class 7 Deathworld. Harsh gravity, extreme weather variations, aggressive predators, toxic plants, deadly microorganisms everywhere. In theory, any species that evolved on such a planet should be incredibly resilient, hardy, difficult to kill. But looking at Kira Vance, gasping for air, her small frame trembling with exhaustion, the classification seemed like a bureaucratic mistake. Commander Thrace pulled me aside after the evaluations. Vorath, what am I supposed to do with her? I checked my datapad. Her scores are technically passing. Barely. By human standards, she qualifies. By human standards, she qualifies to be target practice, Thrace growled. Look, I have got nothing against Terrans. That one male, Marcus Webb, he is performing adequately. The other female, Jasmine Torres, she is holding her own. But this Vance girl? She is going to get herself killed the moment we start live combat exercises. Well, I agreed. The problem was, we could not simply send her home. Interstellar politics being what they were, dismissing a cadet without cause could create diplomatic incidents. She had passed the minimum requirements. Technically, she was qualified to continue. Give her a chance, I said, surprising myself. First combat exam is in 3 days. If she fails, she is out. No politics, no controversy. Just standard washout. Thrace considered this, then nodded slowly. 3 days. Then we see what your little human is made of. The next 72 hours were, in retrospect, fascinating. I made it my mission to observe Kira, to understand what had possessed the Terran government to send her here. Was it some kind of test? A statement? A joke? Joke? What I saw was confusing. She trained, constantly. While other cadets socialized in the mess hall, swapping stories and forming alliances, Kira was in the gym. While others slept, she reviewed combat footage. She ate alone, slept only 4 hours a night, and spoke to almost no one. The other cadets mostly ignored her. The few times someone tried to engage, she responded with polite, brief answers and nothing more. She was not rude. She was not hostile. She was just closed off, focused on something the rest of us could not see. What is she doing? Nyla asked me during a training observation. We were watching through the one-way glass as Kira practiced hand-to-hand combat forms against a training drone set to level 2 difficulty. Level 2. Most cadets started at level 5. Her best, I suppose, I replied. Nyla snorted. Her best is going to get her killed. You know what the first combat exam is, right? Full contact sparring. Randomized matchups. She could end up against anyone. She paused, watching Kira barely dodge a slow drone strike. She could end up against me. I said nothing. Nyla was right. The first combat exam was brutal by design. Random pairings. Full contact. Fights continued until one opponent yielded, was incapacitated, or in rare cases died. We had medical teams standing by and fatalities were uncommon, but they happened. If Kira Vance drew a bad matchup against a Krogan or Vraxian or even one of the Helions, it would be over in seconds. The night before the exam, I found her in the training hall again. It was late, well past curfew, but I had learned she did not care much for rules when they interfered with her preparation. She was running combat simulations on the holoprojector. I watched for a moment before clearing my throat. She spun, startled, her hand moving automatically to her hip, where a weapon would be if she had one. The reaction was fast, instinctive. Interesting. It could advance, I said calmly. It is past regulation rest hours. Yes, sir, she replied, her posture relaxing slightly. I will return to quarters, sir. Wait, I do not know what made me say it. Maybe curiosity. Maybe guilt. May I ask you something? She nodded once. Why are you here? And for the first time since I had met her, something flickered across her face. Not anger, not sadness, something deeper. Because I need to be, sir. That is not an answer. With respect, sir, it is the only answer I can give. I studied her for a moment. Up close, I could see details I had missed before. Her hands were calloused. Old scars crossed her knuckles. Her eyes, a strange shade of green, were hard in a way that did not match her young face. You know tomorrow will be difficult, I said carefully. Yes, sir. Now, you could be seriously injured, or worse. Yes, sir. And yet you are not afraid. She met my gaze directly. Fear is irrelevant, sir. The exam happens whether I am afraid or not. Might as well be ready. I let her go after that, returned to my quarters, tried to sleep. Could not stop thinking about those eyes, those scars, that quiet, absolute determination. The next morning, the combat arena was packed. Combat exams were public events at the Institute. Its not participating could watch and learn. Instructors evaluated performance. Clinical teams stood ready. The arena itself was a circular space, 50 meters in diameter, with a reinforced durasteel floor and energy barriers to contain the fights. 40 cadets, 20 matches, random selection. Commander Thrace stood at the center, a holo display floating beside him showing the matchup algorithm running. Cadets. His voice boomed, you know the rules. Fight until yield or incapacitation. Lethal force is permitted but discouraged. Medical intervention will occur if necessary. Bring honor to your species. The display chimed. First matchup appeared. Not Kira. A Krogan versus a Vraxian. Brutal fight. The Krogan won in 40 seconds, using superior strength to simply overpower the Vraxian's speed advantage. Next match. Two Helians against each other, both male, both evenly matched. Took 6 minutes and ended with a double knockout. Medical teams rushed in. A third match. Fourth match. Fifth match. Then the display chimed again. Kira Vance versus Dax Helion. The arena went silent. Then someone laughed. Then everyone was laughing, even some of the instructors, because the matchup was absurd. Dax was 2.4 meters of muscle and rage. Kira was, well, Kira. Oh, this is going to be ugly, someone muttered behind me. Dax strode into the arena, grinning. He was playing to the crowd, flexing, beating his chest. Try not to die too quickly, little human, he called out. I want to at least break a sweat. Kira entered from the opposite side. She looked small, fragile, completely outmatched. She did not acknowledge Dax's taunts. She just walked to her starting position and waited. Commander Thrace raised his hand. Combatants ready? Dax roared his affirmation. Kira nodded once. Begin. What happened next? I have replayed it in my mind 1,000 times, and I still barely believe it. Dax charged. Of course he did. Helions were straightforward fighters. Overwhelming strength, applied with brutal efficiency. He closed the distance in 3 massive strides, fist pulled back for a punch that would have shattered bones. Kira moved, not away, toward him. She stepped inside his reach, her body low, and suddenly Dax was flying. Actually flying. She had used his momentum, his weight, his overconfidence against him. Some kind of throw. It happened so fast that half the crowd missed it. Dax hit the ground hard, the impact echoing through the arena. For a moment he just lay there, stunned. Then rage replaced surprise. He surged to his feet, eyes blazing. Lucky, he snarled, and charged again. This time, Kira did not throw him. This time she hurt him. Her movements were precise, surgical. She went for joints, pressure points, weak spots in his anatomy that should not have been weak spots because Helions were built like tanks. But somehow she knew where to strike. The palm strike to his knee that made him stumble. an elbow to a nerve cluster under his ribs that made him gasp, a kick to his ankle that nearly dropped him. Dax was bigger, stronger, faster. None of it mattered. Kira was always one step ahead, always in the perfect position, always turning his advantages into liabilities. The crowd had stopped laughing. Now they were silent, watching, trying to understand what they were seeing. Impossible, someone whispered. Dax roared in frustration and desperation, launching a wild haymaker. Kira ducked under it, stepped behind him, and struck. 3 rapid blows to his spine, each one precisely placed. Dax's legs buckled. He crashed to his knees. She did not gloat, did not celebrate. She simply moved to his front, her expression still neutral, and waited. Dax looked up at her, shock and pain written across his face. He tried to stand. Could not. His legs were not responding properly. Whatever she had done, it had disrupted his nervous system. Yield, Kira said quietly. Not a request, a statement of fact. Dax's jaw clenched. For a moment I thought he would refuse. Would rather be knocked unconscious than surrender to this tiny human. But then, slowly, he nodded. I yield, he croaked. The arena exploded. Not with cheers. With shocked exclamations, urgent conversations, disbelief. Medical teams rushed in to attend to Dax, who was already starting to recover feeling in his legs. Kira simply turned and walked out of the arena, her face betraying nothing. Commander Thrace stood motionless, his forearms hanging limp at his sides. Then slowly he turned to look at me. Wrath. What, in the name of the void, was that? I had no answer. I was still trying to process what I had witnessed. A human, a species we had dismissed as weak, had just systematically dismantled a Hylian warrior using nothing but technique and knowledge. I do not know, sir, I admitted, but I think we need to reconsider our assessment of Cadet Vance. The rest of the exam continued. More matches, more winners and losers. But nobody was paying attention anymore. Everyone was talking about Kira, about how she moved, about how she fought, about how she had made one of the strongest cadets in our class look like an amateur. When she was called for her second match, because random selection was cruel that way, you could hear a pin drop. Her opponent? A Vraxian named Scrix. Fast, lethal. Covered in natural armor and armed with razor-sharp claws. Scrix clicked his mandibles confidently as he entered the arena. The Hylian was a fool, he hissed. I will not make his mistakes. Kira said nothing. Just waited. Begin. Scrix was smart. He did not charge. He circled, looking for an opening, his claws extended. Vraxians were ambush predators by nature. Patient. Deadly. Kira circled with him, waiting. Then Scrix struck, a blur of motion, claws aimed for her throat. Kira twisted impossibly fast, and the claws whistled past her neck, missing by millimeters. Before Scrix could recover, she grabbed his extended arm and did something I still do not fully understand. There was a crack, and suddenly Scrix was screaming, his arm bent at an unnatural angle. She had broken it, in one move, without hesitation. Scrix stumbled back, clutching his ruined arm, shock overriding his pain receptors. Kira advanced, not quickly, not angrily, just methodically. She struck his knee, his other arm, his thorax. Each strike calculated to cause maximum damage while expending minimum energy. Scrix yielded before she finished. Smart of him. 2 fights. 2 victories, both against opponents who should have destroyed her. The whispers started immediately. What kind of training do humans have? Where did she learn to fight like that? Did you see how fast she moved? How did she know where to strike? I found myself wondering the same things. After the exam concluded, after the winners were announced and the injured were treated, I went looking for answers. I accessed Kira's file, using my instructor clearance to bypass the standard privacy locks. What I found was enlightening and terrifying. Kira Vance was not a mistake. She was not a random selection. She was a very specific choice. Her file, the parts not classified above my clearance anyway, painted a picture of someone who had been preparing for combat her entire life, orphaned young, raised in something called a state facility, extensive martial arts training from age 6, military academy at 15, special operations candidate at 17, psychological profile flagged as exceptionally resilient and highly adaptive under stress. There were gaps in her record, missions redacted, details classified, but the pattern was clear. Earth had not sent us a random cadet. They had sent us a weapon. A small, unassuming, lethally efficient weapon designed to operate in exactly these kinds of scenarios. But why? Why send her here? Why let us underestimate her? What were the Terrans trying to prove? I did not have answers. Not yet. But as I closed her file and prepared my report for Commander Thrace, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. We had made a terrible mistake assuming Kira Vance was weak. And something told me this combat exam was just the beginning. The next morning, everything changed. Commander Thrace called an emergency assembly. All cadets, all instructors, full attendance mandatory. We gathered in the main hall, hundreds of beings from dozens of species, all wondering what could possibly warrant this level of urgency. Thrace stood at the podium, his expression grim. Yesterday we witnessed something unprecedented. A human cadet defeated 2 opponents who, by all conventional metrics, should have been her superiors. He paused. This has caused me to reevaluate not just Cadet Vance, but our entire understanding of human combat capabilities. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Kira stood at attention near the back, her face unreadable. Effective immediately, Thrace continued, Cadet Vance will be moved to advanced combat training. Additionally, I am requesting a full briefing from Terran Military Command regarding human combat doctrine and capabilities. We clearly do not understand what we are dealing with. More murmurs, some impressed, some resentful. I saw Dax glaring at Kira from across the room, his pride clearly wounded. Nyla looked thoughtful, calculating. Dismissed, Thrace said. As the crowd dispersed, I caught Kira's eye. For just a moment, the briefest instant, I saw something in her expression, a hint of satisfaction, or maybe vindication. Then it was gone, replaced by that same neutral mask. I realized something then. This was not about proving herself to us. This was about something else entirely, if something deeper, something we had not yet begun to understand. But we would. Oh, we would. Because Kira Vance had just kicked open a door that had been closed for too long, and whatever came through that door next would change everything. 3 days later, they announced the real test. The survival trial. 10 cadets. 1 week. Hostile environment. No rules. Only one requirement, survive. And guess who was selected? All 10 top performers from the combat exam. Including, naturally, Kira Vance. This was going to be interesting. The survival trial. Let me explain what that actually means, because the name does not do it justice. It is not some camping trip with mild inconveniences. It is a legitimate test of whether you deserve to breathe the same air as actual combat-certified warriors. 10 cadets. Dropped on Zerath 9, a moon classified as hostile to all known life forms. Temperature swings of 60 degrees within hours. Predators that consider armored vehicles a light snack. Toxic atmosphere that requires constant respirator use. Terrain that ranges from acid swamps to razor-sharp crystal formations. 1 week to survive, reach the extraction point, and do it all while the environment actively tries to murder you. Oh, and here is the fun part. No weapons, no supplies, no communication devices. Just your standard-issue combat suit, a respirator, and whatever skills you brought with you. The 10 selected cadets were the top performers from the combat exam. Kira Vance, Dax Hillian, his sister Nyla, a Krogan named Gormath who had literally crushed his opponent's skull during his match, a Vraxian called Thex who moved like liquid death. 2 Kixar siblings, Plix and Vorn, whose venom could kill most species in under 30 seconds. A Fenrock named Relth, all fur and fangs and barely controlled rage. And 2 others, Jex, a coldly efficient fighter from the Tauros sector, and Mira, a Zenthi female who fought with 4 arms and 0 mercy. 10 killers, 1 hostile moon, 7 days. I should mention that instructor teams would monitor from orbit. We had satellite feeds, biosensor data, emergency extraction capabilities if things went truly catastrophic. But intervention was rare. The whole point was to see how cadets handled themselves when everything went wrong and nobody was coming to help. The drop ships left at dawn. I watched from the command center as 10 pods streaked toward Zerath 9's surface, each one carrying a cadet who might not come back. Commander Thrace stood beside me, his 4 arms crossed, his face unreadable. "Roth," he said quietly, "I want you on Vance monitoring duty full-time." "Sir?" Something about that human bothers me. The way she fights. The way she thinks. The way she does not react like other cadets." He turned to look at me. "I want to know what makes her different. And I want to know before something out there kills her and we lose the chance to find out." I pulled up Kira's biosensor feed on my display. Heart rate steady. Breathing normal. Pod descending through Zerath 9's atmosphere at controlled velocity. Nothing unusual. Until the pods landed. The descent was standard. Each cadet in a separate pod, dropped at random locations within a 100-kilometer radius. They had to navigate hostile terrain, avoid or overcome deadly wildlife, and reach the extraction coordinates on the far side of the continent. 7 days. 150 kilometers as the crow flies, except crows do not exist on Zerath 9, and nothing flies there without getting eaten. Kira's pod touched down in a crystal forest. Massive formations of silicon-based minerals jutting from the ground like frozen lightning. Beautiful. Deadly. The crystals were sharp enough to slice through combat armor if you were careless. The area was also home to something locals called razor wings, flying predators with crystalline edges on their wings that could decapitate prey mid-flight. I watched through her helmet cam as the pod door hissed open. Kira sat motionless for a moment, scanning her surroundings, listening. Smart. Most cadets would rush out, eager to start. She waited. 30 seconds. A full minute. Then movement. A shadow passed overhead. She pressed herself against the pod interior, perfectly still. A razor wing swooped past, its wings singing as they cut through the air. It circled once, twice, decided the pod was uninteresting, and left. Only then did Kira exit, slowly, carefully, every movement deliberate. "She is thinking," Thrace observed. "Most of them are running on adrenaline right now, charging forward. She is thinking." He was right. I pulled up the other feeds. Dax was already sprinting through a volcanic field, relying on his strength and speed to overcome obstacles. Nyla was moving more cautiously, but still pushing hard. For math, the crow gun was literally smashing through barriers. The others, similar stories. Fast, aggressive, confident. Kira was slow, methodical. She spent 10 minutes just studying her surroundings before choosing a direction. She marked her path using small scratches on crystal formations. But she moved during the brief periods when razor wings were least active. She stopped frequently to listen, to observe, to adapt. Boring. Someone commented from another monitoring station. "She will never make it at that pace." I was not so sure. Day 1 passed. All 10 cadets survived, though several had close calls. Ralph, the Fenrock, nearly fell into an acid pool. Thex encountered something called a bone crusher, a local predator that, well, the name is self-explanatory. He survived, but barely. His biosensors showed elevated stress hormones and minor injuries. Kira encountered nothing. Because she encountered nothing. She was so careful, so patient, that she simply avoided danger rather than confronting it. Day 2 brought the first casualty. Plix, one of the Kixar siblings, got separated from his brother during a cave collapse. His biosensor flatlined 6 hours later. The post-analysis suggested he had encountered something in the caves. Something that even Kixar venom could not stop. We never recovered his body. The remaining 9 cadets received the news through their suit displays. Standard protocol. They needed to know the stakes were real. Most of them barely reacted. Combat training teaches you to compartmentalize. Death is a possibility you accept. Move forward. Complete the mission. Kira stopped walking when the notification appeared. She stood perfectly still for nearly 5 minutes. Then she adjusted her route, moving even more carefully than before. "She is scared," an instructor commented. "No," I said slowly, watching her biometrics. "She is recalculating. Her entire strategy just changed." And it had. Because while other cadets saw Plix's death as a tragedy or a warning, Kira saw it as data. Something out there was dangerous enough to kill a Kixar. Something unexpected. Something she needed to avoid. Over the next 2 days, the pattern became clear. The aggressive cadets were making better time. Dax was nearly 50 kilometers closer to extraction than Kira, but they were also taking damage, injuries, exhaustion, resource depletion. Kira was slow, but she was untouched. Not a scratch, not a close call, nothing. Day 4 changed everything. The storm rolled in. Not weather. Zereth 9 does not have weather in the traditional sense. This was a dust storm, except the dust was crystalline particles suspended in the toxic atmosphere, each one small enough to slip through respirator filters and sharp enough to shred lung tissue. The warnings went out immediately. All cadets needed to find shelter. Now, I watched 9 feeds simultaneously. Dax found a cave. Nyla wedged herself under a rock overhang. Gormath simply dug himself into the ground, using his massive strength to create a burrow. The others found similar solutions. Desperate, improvised, barely adequate. Kira did something different. She had seen this coming. Of course she had. She had been watching the horizon, the way the crystals vibrated, the patterns in the dust. She had recognized the signs hours before our satellite systems flagged the storm. She had built a shelter. An actual shelter. Using crystal formations, her own body heat, and some kind of sealant she had made from local plant analogs, she had created a small, protected space. When the storm hit, she was already inside, safe, conserved. The storm lasted 18 hours. When it cleared, 2 more biosensors had flatlined. X and Mira. Both had chosen inadequate shelter. The crystal dust had penetrated their respirators, but they died slowly, painfully, drowning in their own blood. 7 cadets remained. And suddenly, Kira was not in last place anymore. She was in 3rd. Because while others had pushed hard early and paid the price, she had played the long game. "Fascinating," Commander Thrace murmured. "She is not trying to win. She is trying to survive." "Is there a difference, sir?" "There should not be. But apparently for humans there is." Day 5. The terrain shifted. Crystal forests gave way to the acid marshes I mentioned earlier. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. The air grew thick with toxic vapor that ate through equipment. This was where most previous survival trials saw their highest casualty rates. Dax, still in the lead, charged straight into the marshes. Confidence born from being ahead. From being strong. From being, well, Dax. He lasted 40 minutes before he realized his mistake. The acid was not just in the water. It was in the air. It was degrading his suit, slowly but inevitably. His biosensors showed rising panic as he tried to find solid ground, tried to navigate the maze of pools and islands. Then he stepped wrong. His foot went through what looked like solid ground. He sank to his waist in acid. His screams echoed through our monitors as his suit failed. As the acid reached his skin, we extracted him. Emergency protocols. He would live, but his combat career was over. The acid had done too much damage. Dax Hillian, who had been so confident, so strong, was out. 6 cadets left. Kira reached the marshes 8 hours after Dax. By then, she had watched his mistake through her suit display. We broadcast major incidents to remaining cadets, part of the learning process. She did not rush. Instead, she spent 2 hours at the marsh edge, studying, testing. She found thin branches from local plants and used them to probe the ground ahead. She identified safe paths by watching how marsh gases bubbled. She moved in short bursts during periods when the toxic vapor was thinnest. It took her a full day to cross terrain that should have taken 6 hours. But she crossed it without incident, without injury, without losing ground to the acid. She learns from everyone else's failures, I said, more to myself than anyone else. She is not just surviving, she is adapting. Day 6. 3 cadets remained ahead of Kira. Nyla, who had proven just as smart as her brother but far more careful. Math, whose sheer physical resilience was keeping him alive through situations that should have killed him. And Thex, the Vraxian, who was injured but still moving with grim determination. Behind Kira were Vorn and Ralph, both struggling, both exhausted, both running on fumes. The extraction point was now 30 kilometers away. 1 day left. Plenty of time. Except Zereth 9 had one final surprise. The basin. A massive crater filled with volcanic vents, toxic geysers, and something we called hellhounds. Local predators that hunted in packs, communicated through subsonic frequencies, and could bring down prey 3 times their size. Every cadet had to cross it. No way around. The extraction point was on the far side. Nyla entered first. She made it 2 kilometers before the hellhounds found her. I watched her fight. She was good. Very good. She killed 3 of them before the pack overwhelmed her. We extracted what was left before the scavengers arrived. Barely. 5 cadets. Gormath went next. He tried to power through, relying on his size and strength. The hellhounds could not bring him down, but they could slow him, exhaust him. He made it across, but his biosensors were screaming warnings. Dehydration, exhaustion, multiple injuries. He would need immediate medical attention at extraction. Thex was smarter. He found a path along the crater rim, avoiding the basin floor entirely. It took longer, but he avoided the hellhounds. Smart. Except the rim was unstable. The section collapsed under him. He fell 50 meters. His biosensor showed impact, then nothing. Dead before he hit the bottom. 4 cadets left. Kira, Vorn, Ralph, and Gormath, who was already at extraction but barely conscious. Vorn tried the same rim path as Thex. Learned nothing from his predecessor's death. Same result. Dead. 3 cadets. Kira and Ralph approaching the basin from different angles. Gormath at extraction, receiving emergency medical care. Ralph reached the basin first. Being a Fenrock, naturally aggressive and territorial, he decided to fight his way through. He killed 7 hellhounds before they adapted to his tactics. Then he killed 3 more before blood loss and exhaustion caught up with him. We had to extract him. He survived, but he did not make it to the extraction point on his own. Protocol said that counted as failure. 2 cadets. One who had already finished. One who was just reaching the basin edge. Kira Vance stood at the rim of the crater, looking down at the hellscape below. Every other cadet had tried to cross as quickly as possible, minimize exposure, rely on speed or strength or tactics. She did none of those things. Instead, she waited. She found a sheltered spot and sat down. Her biosensors showed her heart rate dropping. She was resting. In the middle of the final challenge, with extraction just 30 kilometers away. What is she doing? Thrace demanded. She has 8 hours until the deadline. She cannot just sit there. But she could. And she did. For 6 hours, Kira Vance sat motionless, watching the basin, studying the hellhounds, learning their patterns, their pack dynamics, their hunting strategies, their patrol routes. Then, with just 2 hours until deadline, she moved. Not into the basin. Around it, she had identified a path. Not the rim that had killed Thex and Vorn. Not the floor that had nearly killed everyone else. A middle route. A series of ledges and outcroppings that the hellhounds could not easily access, but that were stable enough to support her weight. It was slow. It was dangerous. It required climbing skills that most soldiers never develop, but she made it work. Halfway across, a hellhound spotted her. It could not reach her, but it alerted the pack. They gathered below, tracking her movement, waiting for her to make a mistake. She did not make mistakes. She climbed with the same methodical patience she had shown all week. When she needed to rest, she found secure positions and waited. When the path ahead looked unstable, she tested it first. When hellhounds tried to climb up to her, she used loose rocks to trigger small avalanches that drove them back. 1 hour until deadline. She was 3/4 of the way across. In 30 minutes until deadline. She reached the far side. Solid ground. The hellhounds below howled in frustration. She ignored them and started running toward the extraction point. 15 minutes until deadline. She crested the final hill and saw the extraction zone. Gormath was already there, strapped into medical gurney, unconscious but stable. Kira walked to the designated point, her breathing heavy but controlled, and stood at attention. The extraction shuttle descended. The hatch opened. Commander Thrace himself stood there, his forearms crossed, his expression unreadable. "Cadet Vance," he said, "congratulations. You are one of 2 cadets to successfully complete the survival trial." "Thank you, sir," she replied, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "I have questions." "Sir?" "One, why did you move so slowly? You could have finished days ago if you had pushed harder." Kira looked at him directly. "Sir, the objective was to survive and reach extraction. Speed was never specified as a requirement. I optimized for mission success, not for time." Thrace studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he laughed. "You know what, cadet? You are absolutely right. Everyone else was racing. You were surviving. That is the difference." He gestured for her to board the shuttle. As she passed me, heading for a seat, she glanced my way. That same hint of something in her eyes. Not satisfaction, not pride. Understanding. Like she knew exactly what lesson she had just taught us. The flight back to Station Chronos was quiet. Gormath was sedated. Kira stared out the viewport at Zerath 9 shrinking below. I sat across from her, reviewing data, trying to piece together what I had witnessed. Finally, I broke the silence. "Cadet Vance, may I ask you something personal?" She nodded without looking away from the window. "Why did they send you here?" "The Terran military has thousands of soldiers. Hundreds of special operations candidates." "Why you specifically?" For the first time all week, she smiled. It was not a happy smile. "Because I am not the strongest. I am not the fastest. I am not the most skilled warrior Earth has to offer." "Then why?" "Because I am the most human." I did not understand. She could see that. She turned to face me, and those hard green eyes softened just slightly. "Instructor Vorath, what did you learn from watching me this week?" I thought about it. That patience is more valuable than strength. That adaptation matters more than power. That survival is about thinking, not just fighting. "Exactly," she said quietly. "Earth is not a strong species by galactic standards. We are not the toughest, not the fastest, not the most advanced. But we survive. We survive because we think. We adapt. We learn. We endure." She looked back at the viewport. "The Terran government did not send me here to prove we are strong. They sent me to prove we belong. To show that humans can stand alongside Krogans and Vraxians and Helians, not by matching them, but by being ourselves. By using what makes us human." "And what is that?" I asked. "Stubbornness, creativity, the absolute refusal to quit, no matter how bad things get." She paused. "You call Earth a death world. You are right. It is. Everything there tries to kill us, whether animals, plants, diseases, other humans. We grew up in a place that did not want us to exist, and we not only survived, we thrived, we built civilizations, we reached for the stars. We did it all while our own planet was actively hostile. She met my eyes again. So yes, instructor, I am weak. By your standards, I am fragile. But I am also human, and humans do not give up. Ever. The shuttle docked. Medical teams rushed to get Gormath to intensive care. Kira walked off under her own power, refusing assistance, heading straight for debriefing. Commander Thrace pulled me aside before I could follow. Wrath, your assessment? Sir, I believe we have fundamentally misunderstood what it means to be human. Elaborate. We looked at their physical capabilities and saw weakness. We should have been looking at their psychology, their adaptability, their resilience. Cadance survived not because she was strong, but because she was smart, patient, willing to learn from others' mistakes, willing to take the slow path if it meant reaching the goal. Thrace nodded slowly. And the implications? Sir, if one human operating alone can outperform cadets we considered superior, what could a team of humans do? What could an army of them do? We have been dismissing them as minor players in galactic politics. I think that is a mistake. Agreed, Thrace said grimly. I am recommending full reassessment of Terran military capabilities, and I am recommending Cadet Vance for advanced command training. The debriefing took hours. Every moment of the trial was analyzed, every decision questioned, every survival strategy documented. Kira answered every question with the same calm precision she had shown all week. When it was over, when she was finally dismissed, I caught up with her in the corridor. Cadet Vance. One more question. She stopped, turned, waited. Was any of this hard for you? Did you ever doubt you would make it? That smile again. Sad. Knowing. Instructor Vorath, I have been surviving hostile environments my entire life. Serath 9 was just another day. She walked away, leaving me standing in the corridor, finally understanding. Earth had not sent us a soldier. They had sent us a survivor. And survivors, true survivors, are far more dangerous than warriors. The rest of the training cycle was interesting. Word spread fast about what happened on Zerath 9, about how the small human everyone had dismissed had outsurvived cadets twice her size, about how she had turned weakness into strength through nothing but patience and intelligence. Kira became something of a legend. Other cadets studied her techniques. Instructors revised training protocols based on her strategies. The Terran government was pleased. Very pleased. 6 months later, Kira Vance graduated top of her class. Not because she won every fight, not because she was the strongest or fastest, but because when the final evaluations came, when instructors looked at who they would want on their team in a real crisis, the answer was unanimous. The human, the fragile, stubborn, impossibly resilient human. I attended her graduation ceremony, watched her receive her combat certification, watched Commander Thrace personally present her with honors for exceptional performance. Afterward, I found her one last time. It could dance. I mean, Officer Vance now. Congratulations. Thank you, Instructor Vorath, for everything. I did nothing. You watched. You learned. You understood. That is more than most did. She was right, of course. She was usually right. So what now? I asked. Back to Earth? Assignment to a ship? Actually, she said. And there was that hint of satisfaction again. I have been asked to stay here and to help train the next generation of cadets. Apparently, they want someone who can teach them how to survive, not just how to fight. I laughed. Of course Earth would find a way to ensure their methods were taught to every species in the galaxy. Smart, subtle, very human. Good luck, Officer Vance. Thank you, Instructor. And Vorath. Tell your people something for me. What is that? Next time you encounter humans, Do not assume we are weak just because we look it. Because the thing about humans is, we are at our most dangerous when you underestimate us. She walked away, leaving me with that final warning. I should have felt concerned, maybe worried. Instead, I felt something else entirely: excitement. Because the galaxy just got a lot more interesting. And somewhere out there, on a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable star, millions more humans were growing up in a hostile environment that was teaching them the same lessons Kira had learned: patience, adaptation, survival, the refusal to quit. We called them Deathworlders, thought it made them weak, fragile, limited. We were wrong. So very wrong, because humans are not weak. They are just playing a different game than the rest of us. And now that we finally understand the rules, I have a feeling the galaxy is never going to be the same. Kira Vance taught us that, one combat exam at a time, and that is a lesson we will never forget.